What I find when I hire people is I'm not always looking at the job description. Great if they do, but always there's a value add. And there's always a discovery of a talent they didn't have. And I feel like corporate America needs some in the creative world of hiring versus hiring a position.
We're so happy to have you here today. I have one of my new favorite people that I have met on the show. She is a trailblazer. She is a baker, if I can say that. And she has really, before technology was really popular to integrate into your business, into your systems, she has been doing that, I think, way ahead of the curve. And believe it or not, it's art space. She is the founder and director of the River Oaks Chamber Orchestra here in Texas. And I've had the pleasure to go to several of their events. And then when I figured out what she was doing, I was blown away and knew she absolutely had to be on the podcast to be interviewed. This is Alecia Lawyer, founder and director of ROCO, as it goes by. Alecia, thanks for coming today. Tell us, I know you went to Juilliard, you played the oboe. You could have just been someone who was going to be in the symphony and be a musician. Not that, I don't want to say just, because that's a really big accomplishment and thing to do. But you that and you had a bigger vision. Explain your vision and how it got to where you are right now.
Oh, goodness. A big job for 21 condensing. But yes, thank you. I always say I'm Alecia Lawyer, not a lawyer. And I started this organization because there really is a lack of jobs in our field. And while there are orchestras, those are tenured lifetime jobs. So even if you go to Juilliard and you come out into the field, maybe there are 2 openings a year, period, in the United States, full stop. And I've even heard a statistic that said it's 50% harder to get onto a Major League Baseball team than in a symphony orchestra. And so that's just a stunning thing that no one really knows. But when we actually moved to Houston for my husband's oil and gas job, I really did integrate myself in the city and immerse myself in Houston. So it took me a while, but Alecia Lawyer Human was very happy in Houston, doing things like volunteerism and working. I did play, but there were no jobs in my instrument. I was a DJ for a radio station and I was some startup organization. We did go abroad for my husband's MBA and right back to Houston. But when I was here, I really was seeking out and have always been curious about connection and finding ways for music to permeate people's lives. And when I was ready to frankly give up the oboe in 2004, when my children had been born and I was so involved in Houston, but my church renovated. And that was the prompting when St. John the Divine, which is this glorious sprinkly bright style building, actually renovated. It was a true start in orchestra. And that's like, what? And I thought of people I wanted to play with versus places and pieces to play. And it became a human first organization, which is the driver of everything we do. And we started also with a no jerks allowed policy, which has continued today. And I think that's pretty important to get out toxicity in any field, but in particular in the arts. And that's really what's happened all these 21 years, all of the things and the innovations that we've done. I love technology. My parents were video game addicts. My parents.
When you think about it, like that's not a demographic, your parents for games.
And when my kids wanted to go over, I was like, no more than 6. I was used to all generations being interested in technology and it didn't intimidate me. But also I was excited about it, finding ways to have that be bringing more connection in people's lives. So when I started ROCO, we did it in how do you fit in people's lives? So it was 5:00 shows done by 7. You'll have 7:30 reservations. When are you able to do that in your life? At a concert, we do living composers. We commission them to write music of today and seeking out Bach's and Beethoven's of our time. Then we play all over Houston. We performed at 82 venues in Houston, which is insane. And we're adding 2 more this year. Just really taking you on a tour of your city through music. It's the experience culture, but with the highest level of artistic and artists. So all the different things we started experimenting with, but importantly, using technology and having an app for 12 years now. We've never had a concert where a phone has gone off in the hall, but we've asked you to turn on your phone and we want you to engage with us that way. There are many things that we've added to it where you can actually view music, parts, scores while we're playing. You can see where people sit. We've done an augmented reality experience in it. And I just feel like almost half the audience uses it, which is really exciting. I just love, again, the idea that technology can bring us together and put our music in your face, frankly. Now that we've recorded 21 years of music, we have actually put QR codes to our music along trails here, in hospitals, in parks, and schools. We're the only orchestra in the entire world that can do this with 1,700 tracks of music that we can slice and dice and playlist. So not just the QR codes, but the technology behind that, but also live streaming since 2013 to the world free. And I talk to businesses about this, saying, what do you do? What is your brand? What do you not want to do? And then how can you also lean into something you might be spending a lot of money on that you actually need to spend more money on?
One of the things you said was, how does our product fit into their lives? So a lot of don't ask that question. I'm in book publishing, so I've got to say, how does having a book fit into your life, into your brand, into your business? So I think that's a great question for anybody to ask to start out with. And then, Hap, tell me, give me some tips. We said we should have music, we should stream music. This is what it's going to do for us. What kind of questions should a business ask, even for us, or if you're a window washer, a landscaper, if you're a SaaS business, you're a lawyer, right? What should be you asking that can be a supplement that can help your business? Are there certain core questions that you could say, hey, you guys need to ask yourself these types of questions to find out what you can develop? And things are so easy to develop now when you can go to Lovable and just boom, you can have an.
That's right. I interface with customer, your audience. How do you interface, and how do you want that to be easier and better than competitors? Do you want to, I will give an example. I was checking into a flight at American Airlines, and it was frankly a nightmare. Just how many times they don't have the automatic peeves. You go to that next spot you're supposed to fill in, and it's got to have numbers, and it doesn't automatically change your keyboard to numbers. When that happens, I'm just so impressed with the business that you understand seamless, but human first and quick. I think that's the harder part. Also, fun ways to follow up technologically. I definitely have people that text me. We got a first stucco, right? For painting our stucco house. And somebody not just texted me their information and things, but texted samples and ways that you could see all these different colors on your house. Those kind of ideas are ways that assist people to make their easier.
You always have to create it yourself. Businesses, oh my gosh, then who on my team is going to create this or do this? Or there's people who do this and that's they do. You might be like, oh, I could go to Lovable or go to ChatGPT or go somewhere and try and figure this out. But where you as a business owner spending your time doing this when there's someone that's all they're eat, sleeping, and drinking, and you can just have them do it or hire someone on your team that's all. How have you delegated work like that and technology? Because I know you're not, even though you've got a tech background, I don't know that you're to your eyeballs in doing that as a director and founder.
Yes, and artistic director at that now. I mean, we have a big team. I have a managing director, so we have a big 8-person team at this point. I would say that, and here's a good example. When I did realize that we could actually have scores and parts, I was at a rehearsal, watching the rehearsal because it was a string quartet. It wasn't the full orchestra. So ROCO is a 40-piece professional orchestra. Half the musicians are not from here. But we also play in smaller iterations. It's like a model where we play everywhere for purposes, not background music, site specific. But I was sitting at rehearsal and we'd already had the app, and the company Instant Encore our skin is on top of their app. And we've experimented with a lot of ideas with them. But I was sitting there in the rehearsal and realizing I was looking at the score because I was curious about it on Google Drive. And I'm like, why can't we put this in the app for audiences to see? So I asked my Greta Rimpo, our marketing director, who has a massive tech background. And she said, I think we can do a non-downloadable HTML. So publishers don't worry that the piece will be stolen somehow. And so she figured that piece out, contacted our app person to figure out where and how to embed it. And frankly, it's quite easy, right? And there's always threshold anxiety for every new step we take. And I think that's also hard, not just finding, like you said, the nation, which is such a good question, making sure that you don't have to, it's brilliant, knowing that you have surrounded yourself with people that have skills that you can lean into, or they know someone that does. But also the threshold anxiety, not just to the audience of just, oh, do I open my phone? This is weird, but have a heads up so you don't have to worry screen is glowing. But also the idea of, I've never been to an orchestra. I don't even know what that instrument is. Here's a map and pictures of the instruments and where people sit. oh, and here's music, even if you take a look at it. Like, you don't read when you first open a book, you understand the words. And so just all those little layers, I think, are finding the people that have the skills that you can say, you're better at this than me, please do this. It's almost like even your mission that you can go toward. I've asked this question many times to businesses. What do you do that other people probably do better and would be better to align with them and collaborate with them versus trying to just continue to beat your head against the wall?
Yeah. And the other thing I know in our business we have a hard time with is letting go that there's the one part, hire the people who do it better than you, right? So you don't have that learning curve and you're not doing it. Then there's the, I think I can do it better than anybody else thing. You've been used to doing that task. And now you're like, oh, I've got to give it up to someone and you want to micromanage them. And it's hard to let go. Have you experienced that at all?
You know what? I feel strongly that I'm ambitious in ROCO, and I surround myself often with people who say no. And that's one of the tenets in the questions I ask when I do work with businesses is, do you really surround yourself with people who challenge you? And I don't mean people that are negative Nellies or say no, don't do that. That the first answer is no. But people who say, and my team is great at, if I have this wacky idea that I text them out of the blue, they're never like, oh, and sometimes they say, oh my goodness. But they'll say, okay, let's talk about that. What does that look like? What does that entail? And I have a business mind, so I'm not do something crazy. I think it's important to surround yourself with people that do say no, but when they say yes, they say it emphatically and all on board. No, I find that we always talk about when the bus hits me, what happens to ROCO. But for me, it's more when the aliens abduct me, what happens. So you got to think about that a lot.
And you know what I love that you have a gift for is you micro down. It's like peeling the onion. Like when you did this app, you were describing all the little steps and things that people, maybe want to know what the instrument is. What's the next question after that? What else would they want to score? Think about like questions that people ask in a regular business. If you went in and you're like, okay, whatever your product is, what are those things micro layer down? And is it hard for a business owner to do their teeth?
Interesting. I don't know why this came to my mind, but the pool company that's really mom and pop owned, and we've used them forever. But I would just say that, do you really have to check the pH balance? Is if there's someone else or technology that you could instigate that can change to that level? Yeah. Right? But also, how far up as the pool company are you really trying to do all of those things? I agree that every company can have those questions asked and answered. And you're right, the micromanaging is really hard, especially for founders. And I think that's a big part of what I talk about is your original mission. Are you still on it? But we have these ideas. Are they in the stream and in the west, or are they off piste? And if so, okay, is that fine? But then pan up. Human up with the people. What I find when I hire people is I'm not always looking at the job description. Great if they do, but always there's a value add. And there's always a discovery of a talent they didn't have. And I feel like corporate America needs some of the creative world of hiring versus hiring a position. And I'm not saying you just hire randomly. You definitely need them to have certain hard skills. Here's a good example. A marketing manager we just hired, he very young, very talented. When he interviewed, he was very buttoned up in his suit, doing his thing. But then we randomly found out, we're all public figures, that he is a fiddle player in a band. And this amazing video with a cowboy hat, like leaning in. And I was like, if you had just played Devil Went Down to Georgia interview, I would not have gone further. It's like, it's fantastic that he, for me, crosses over into all these realms, because for me, music is agnostic and I don't like these self-imposed silos. And I find that businesses do these weird self-imposed silos. And I'm not saying that you have to go so wide that mission creep. And even businesses have missions, right? It's not just profits that should be talking about this. But I find that you can be so self-siloed in your field.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's hard to hire. It's hard to get a job, but then on the other side, it's to hire and know And I am a believer in hire, slow, fast type of thing. And we are guilty in the past. We have held on to people because we're soft-hearted that we're going to work out. We'll just give them more chances. And in the meantime, you're still sucking dollars and productivity and all of that down the drain when you have that. Have you found go?
No, actually,
Good.
I know that sounds strange as a creative, but no, because I've been incredibly clear from the beginning who we are not. And we have 5 things from the beginning we've never done. No background music as a brand, no chasing funding with programming, no jerks allowed in the organization. And my team has made me change that to we cultivate a culture of kindness, which is true as well. A nicer way, maybe. But also what we don't do, no music education, no outreach, but in a very specific way. But no, it was very clear what person needs to be involved on the stage, but everywhere. And not that they might not be nice people, but when the skills don't match, you have to pretty quickly put people on performance improvement plans. And I have seen that work to show it won't work out. And I have now seen it work to show that someone can learn and grow. So I'm not afraid now to say, this is a performance improvement plan. Here's your steps that I need demonstrable improvement because it's draining me and our team. And that's exciting, actually, when you now see the success of it, not as fearful. Plus, I had somebody leave my team and go to a really large organization in town and called me within a week and said, I really miss the No Jerks Allowed policy. Somebody is giving a huge amount of money to the team. And I said, and she's my boss, get rid of them, confront it. And I said, how many people are waiting in the wings to give probably 10 times the amount of money that person's getting once? And just it's like ruthlessly cutting out the toxicity and looking at yourself too and your own behavior and having people free and comfortable to call it out too.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. So let's switch gears a little bit. You would think a symphony or an orchestra doesn't have to do any sales, but you have a multiple of sales because you're really raising money to support the cause. So that's a silo of it. And then you want people to go up. So let's walk through first the fundraising. That is the big chunk of we can't keep surviving or doing what we do without that. So walk us through that ticket sales.
Sure. I will say, talking to me with ROCO is very unusual in that most performing arts groups are 40-60, which means 40% ticket sales, 60% donated. And we actually are 5% tickets and 95% donated. It's completely bucking any trend, completely not. So I have been laughing about this concept of ROCO is the most approachable, accessible, highest level arts organization possible. And it is possible to have at-capacity audiences and still fund our $2.5 million budget with 95% donated dollars. Such that people feel like they're investors in what you do versus transactional. And I do feel like businesses can get there, even though, yes, you buy this and you have this and you take it home. There are brands that you and I can both name that you feel like, why? It's just a brand. And I feel like the engendering of connection and well-being are probably the 2 biggest keys to how you should to a brand and with a brand. And I would say, for you're saying that the fundraising, you have to do the same that I didn't realize I had done over 21 years. And I got this comment from someone in my field. They basically said that we have created blind trust in our brand. And the way we've done that is inviting people in with the experience and just saying, come, I'm going to cook a great meal for you. You can taste it or push it around on your plate if you don't like it. But everything you try is something I've personally made for you. And so we do these concerts that are wildly different. We just did Beer and Brass at St. Arnold's Brewery. And our next one is at Texas Southern University, a piece that was written during the Holocaust. A bit of a up and down of where we are and what we play, but it's human first, where the brass guys play what they're wanting to play. And I programmed this. So I'm drawing it all back to say development only comes from the product you build that has meaning to someone, because people go after the wealthy people to give money for donating. Wealthy people are wealthy because they don't just give away their money. They don't just randomly give it to you. And you really have to earn that trust. And I was told by a large orchestra leader who said that you can see I've built blind trust in our audience, which is difficult. So it's not like I can come into a company and say, okay, it's now because it's 21 years, but there are 12 steps to take to get to that end game that are more about who are you? Why are you here? And asking those questions that can lead to that. So we have donations from individuals, foundations. We even have now foundations that give not to the arts, but do give to us. And they have seen us go for systemic change in our field and not just our own brand. Not that commercial organizations or businesses have any responsibility to change the zeitgeist or to change the culture. But if there is a way to show that their demonstration of their brand can make a difference in their ecosystem, that is sure.
And it always comes down to they have to know and trust you, right? So the more you are building that in different ways, and I love you're doing that in different outreaches. It's not just with your product, it's with the different touch points that you have and even knowledge that you have. And you're inviting them in. There's no barrier. Just come, see, try. If you like us, we want to have you. If you don't, we're not your thing, that's okay. But they're still going to see a beautiful thing when they're there, even though it might not be in their lane. They might recommend it to somebody else as well to invite them to come in. So I think it really challenging. Technology is at lightning speed. What are the challenges you're finding with your team in keeping up with all of this? And you are so tech savvy to be. What are the challenges that you're seeing?
I wouldn't claim I'm that tech savvy. I'm tech curious. And I think that's the best way to be, is because you'll never understand it all. Our oldest is a tech consultant. And so I really feel like you just have to be tech curious is the word I would use. And that way, when you're seeing something.
That word tech curious, being tech curious. What are you seeing are the biggest challenges with a lot of people, not just your own business with ROCO, but I mean, with fundraising and all that goes to a lot of different people. What are you seeing as some of the biggest challenges in business today?
The noise of standing out. I was talking to somebody recently about when Facebook in the early days, how it was very easy to make a splash with something unique, and that everybody again is so self and so blinders on with the ears, which would be called earplugs, I guess. Where it's impossible to break through the layers of people's protection right now because they feel assaulted with so much. To me, that's the biggest challenge, is to cut through the noise and not feel like you're being aggressive. I think that is the hardest thing. And if you're not being aggressive and smart, then you're not getting through. I think that's the biggest challenge, is really trying to say, hey, pay attention to me. We say we're the who in Whoville, which is not helpful. It would be a gem. And so in some ways, it is that old-timey Prel commercial or Willa Balsam. I told you friends, and so on. And really happens. One of our most popular videos on YouTube is a lullaby from Vietnam. And it is called May. And we've had almost 500,000 views of it because it has spoken to the country. It is the anthem of the country in the way that, and they all, truly constant comments of how can a Western orchestra passion breaking into that connection and meaning, even if what you sell is toilet scrubbing, how does that mean something to my family? And
I think cutting through the noise is twofold. It's what you were saying, is there's so much content out there. How do you get people's eyes and ears and to look at you and connect with you? And then the other part, as a business owner or even a mom, or a parent, it's cutting out all the noise so you can focus on what's important to you. Things coming at you every day. You can start scrolling and all of a sudden an hour went by and you're like, oh my gosh, I just spent an hour doing what?
Yes, all the time. I know. And I have the most random, I would love to see people's scrolls because I really think that would get an interesting look at who they are. Mine has everything from cat videos to is random Dungeons and Dragons things to then like tech things. And it's interesting, but I have felt the same. I struggle with this so hard. I keep looking to micro learn. I'm all about podcasts like this and listening to things that are biased in ways. And then I'm wondering, why am I continuing to bias? Actually, I got to a critical point, which my whole orchestra laughed at me because I told them this. I was listening to a book, which is how I read now at this point, that I was listening to a book called Addicted to Hurry, but I was listening to it at 2 times speed.
Yep.
So that's I have a problem. And I know the first step is admitting you have a problem. So I just classic example.
You're just managing your time. Well, it's okay. I can read this book in half the time that I normally would. And it's interesting that you say audiobooks. There was a stat that just came out that this is the first year that audiobooks have. Before, we would always tell our authors, like, jump into audiobooks because the competition is not, it's still, they're outselling ebooks, but there's still not a lot as much competition in audiobooks as there is in ebooks. I just think that's going to continue when people are listening. And another great way is to turn your audiobook into podcast. So each chapter is a podcast episode because some people are podcast people. They're not audiobook people. So you're reaching a whole in a different way. Yeah. And I love about like the scrolling. I almost show Twitter in my kids' scrolls, especially when he's really into all the Japanese animation and stuff. And I wouldn't relate to anything on his page at all. The other one is more business minded. So I probably would more. And then I've made a shift. I don't know about you, but I'm going, okay, the thing to say. And I would jump into the bath and be like, oh, I'm just going to scroll for a little bit and get like an ounce of it. And now I'm like, no, I'm going to look at my goals. I'm going to look at my to-do list while I'm there for 30 seconds. If I have a minute instead of scrolling, or before I allow myself to scroll, I have to go back and look at this quarter, what I want to accomplish and get that in my head before scrolling.
That's
so a reward first before doing the entertainment.
That's really smart.
Yeah, that's my 2026 thing. We'll see if I can do it the whole time.
And I do. My husband and I are empty nesters and really have been looking. And that's why we appeal to people who are curious no matter what. But it does seem to be an age group that it's younger than most audiences in classical music, right? Because again, I'm agnostic about why are we related to classical music. It makes no sense. We just had Steve come and take Cutting in the Arts Award from us, accept it from us, that he's a famous rock and roll guitarist. So those kind of, when you get to a certain age, you get curious, and it could be 40s, 50s, where you're really looking for something more deep and unique. And like, we finally bought a Harley, So,
love that. Yeah. So I think you're right. As you get, well, at any age, right? If you stay curious, wanting to learn and grow, otherwise you're just stuck in mustard still, or you got to move on. Thanks for joining us today. Tell people where they can meet you, Alecia.
Absolutely. AleciaLawyer.com. ALECIA is my name spelled. And then ROCO.org. And we're all over at ROCO Houston on YouTube. We're everywhere in Houston, but live stream to the world for free. So no excuses orchestra. You can find us anywhere.
Yeah. And if you'd like to reach out to her, she's happy to speak at your company or organization. And she also does business coaching. So thanks for joining us today. And if you're looking to become a best-selling author or need your book marketed and you already have a book, we're happy to do that for you at Elite Online Publishing. We're famous for making people best-selling, award-winning, international best-selling authors, as well as being on podcast interviews and getting articles written about them. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Fine. Thank you for having me.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full-spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.